And it's a monthly thematic breakfast. We serve a hot breakfast. We do these generally just in York Region. We have about 6 to 8 of them a year, and the priorities are determined by the United Way of York Region. So what we do is we invite a faculty speaker and a community leader to talk for about 10 minutes around a subject area. And the subject areas are really broad and intentionally so. The first one we did years back was around mental health. And this is a nice success story because Henny Westra, who is the second name, is in the Department of Psychology. And where would we be? Well, also somewhere in there is Mary Lynn Porto with the Canadian Mental Health Association of York Region. They gave their presentations. I'll facilitate questions and answers, but at the beginning we go around and do an introduction. We cap it at about 25 people so it's intimate. If it was 60, I wouldn't want to talk. So, and the community basically decides who wants to come. Graduate students, other researchers show, eat your breakfast, talk about the work you're doing. I'll facilitate a discussion, Q&A. It's the time afterward. And it's similar to breaks downstairs where you're in a session and you want to exchange business cards with somebody that you met and found out that they're doing something really cool, similar to what you are. And that's sort of the magic of this. Well, Henny and Mary Lynn started talking afterward, and we had to kick them out of the room because another group was coming in almost 2 hours later. They collaborated around a $1.5 million, and here we get into the terms again, a knowledge translation grant. So it wasn't a research project, but it was a project to take existing research around youth mental health and effectively disseminate it to end users. And I'm like, well, that's pretty darn cool. Firstly, that's a lot of money. But it effectively, I mean, they were able to engage partners from all over the country. If it wasn't for that breakfast, the presence in York Region wouldn't be on that project. They wouldn't have a voice at the table. They may not have a chance to really kind of influence the products which were going to be developed for their constituents. And the great thing too is the development of an ongoing research agenda. So KM and the AMs are just fun. The grant came from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. Yeah, they put in a formal grant, and we're successful in that. I mean, there are a lot of other success stories around this, but they've been a fantastic venue event for us. I spoke briefly about the success we've had around interns. Our initial grant with the University of Victoria provided some pretty nice resources, and our own unit, funded 12 graduate students one year and 12 the next. Once the grant ended, we didn't have the capacity, yet we started working with a provincial program that provides matching funding for a 4-month internship. Now, right off the bat, and this is managing expectations, partners need to bring $7,500 to the table. Yet it's matched provincially, and you get somebody to come in and just go through a very specific research project in a fair amount of detail. It also engages their supervisor. This is the kind of thing we're working with the OLC around right now, around some opportunities there. And since we had our 12 and 12, we've been able to support 7 other opportunities. 5 of the first 25 have been hired by their organization, and some of the projects that resulted from this activity brought in about $340,000 as a result of the internship's work. And a lot of research projects they really evolve or percolate up to a phase 2. So what does this all mean? And I'll look to the middle line of the take-home message, the capacity to use research in decision-making. I think that's the big thing right there for for a non-academic organization or a collaborator that would be interested in something like this, that's the real return on investment, is the chance to, it is that capacity to use the research around something that's really important within the organization. I spoke earlier about the project description forms, and these are available within the website. And I don't know if I have a copy handy. Really, this is kind of the core business of the work I do as a broker. And it enables research or knowledge-based opportunities to be kind of shopped around. About a third of them come internally, 2/3 of them would come externally. The big question I had over the last couple of days about cost, there is no cost. So for a smaller community-based organization that doesn't have much of a budget, there's no obligation or requirement to come to the table with money. If you have a project idea, I will work with you, explore it, tease it out, try and find a relevant match, and then working with that academic colleague, that could open up a whole host of other funding options for yourself. Interestingly, the academic is equally as excited about taking their area of research interest and exploring non-traditional research funds. And you generally work as a team around that process. So over the last 4.5 or 5 years, the portfolio right now sits at about 189. Now, they're not all active, but it's kind of what we've generated internally. These projects and partnerships have helped to generate about $340,000 for community organizations and combined research contracts of over $700,000. And that's nice. I mean, I like the fiscal metrics, but it's not a big driver for me. Like personally, I'm more impressed with the number and the quality and the fact that at the end of the day, a lot of these projects are succeeding and helping to meet those specific needs. So what have we learned over the last 4.5 years? And I guess a bit of a recap. So taking those traditional producer push and user pull methodologies, we've created that little lovely green bubble, that co-production space. And that's been a big source of work for us. That's when I talk about 189 projects, a lot of them fall within that green bubble. It's centered around a knowledge broker, and sort of the capacity that brings internally and externally within the university. It is not an exact technology transfer process because that whole technology transfer thing is predicated around money. That's the big metric. It's not the big metric for us. It's more outcome and exploring the notion of impact. Certainly, it's a lot more than a website or a brochure. I'm glad that the infrastructure is there. I mean, you go home, and if this resonated at all, I invite you to check out the website and see. It will have some of the stories and perhaps create a bit of a deeper meaning and understanding. I mean, I acknowledge it is not an intuitive term. My friends they're like, what the hell do you do? And I've been telling them for years, and they're like, I don't know. Like, they're like, I don't know. So my director said, well, we'll have a life for research. So now they laugh and they don't know. Now, it does take resources. The resources aren't always fiscal. It's often time. Now, this message is really geared probably to sort of a decision maker audience with deep pockets. Like if MTCU were here, or the Federal Tri-Councils, or my Vice President of Research. Well, yes. I mean, the office space I'm in, my salary, some of the support and operational funds for these KM and the AMs, for example, that takes resources. But for me to be able to come and speak to you about opportunities and explore that matchmaking process, no, it doesn't. We need to work internally around the notion of sustainability. We're still struggling with that, especially with a vision to grow across the country, and the whole idea of impact. I love it, but it's elusive to me. This is where we are right now. It's the 6 universities that have come together. We're also working with Memorial in Newfoundland, UQAM in Montreal, University of Guelph, University of Saskatchewan, and the 2 original partners in the process. And there's a host of community-based organizations, government, and others that we work with. I mean, one of the biggest activities we did was with the Ontario Ministry of Aboriginal Affairs. It was a relatively new ministry. They identified 3 policy pillars, and they wanted to hear about the research that was going on and some stories. And we brought together collaborative partnerships at York, University of Victoria, Lakehead, and Laurentian, both in Ontario, and had a day-long symposium broadcast across 4 universities. Oh, they loved it. They loved it because it really helped to inform them around their emerging pillars and hear some of those stories, especially at the various bureaucratic levels. It was very well received. Other than that, that's it. Look at that. It's before 4:55. I want to thank the OLC. It's been a great 2 days, and I appreciated the opportunity to speak with you, especially when you had a host of options. Are there any questions? And don't feel obligated. I mean, reflection's a big part of my learning process. I'd be driving home and I'd have a whole host of questions. That's when they'd come flooding out. Yet, there's my email address in that greeny blue color, the website for the unit I'm working in, and feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you very much. I've really appreciated this. Thanks. Oh, I am also, yes, Vijay.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
You had a lot of examples about how the kind of work that you're doing and the work that you're doing the matches have led to organizations receiving grants for either research or added work or more program. Have you had examples of where policy has been influenced?
No, and I may have spoke about that earlier before you arrived, or not touched upon it in enough detail. There have been some requests that have come through a policy stream, yet it's been very a very small, specific kind of ask. So, and the follow-up around that for us has been challenging as well. So, I mean, the shameful answer is no. But when you look at all the things that go into formulating policy, kind of hope that it's just one of those things in the toolkit that they've given some consideration to. I mean, you may have heard the idea of evidence-based practice or evidence-based policy. I'm not a big fan of that because it becomes very presumptuous that what we're doing is so great that it creates this direct pipeline. It's more evidence-informed practice and policy where there are a host of other influences, maybe more evidence-informed policy. I think there's more opportunities around professional practice, but public policy has been, it's a work in progress for us. Yes?
Yes, if an agency is outside Toronto, does that pose limitations to working with you?
Potentially so, but I'll explore it. I mean, I'll explore the opportunity, look within our network, and perhaps, I mean, where it becomes a bit of a barrier for me is perhaps looking through your local university and starting to scan and pick the community in which you're in. But just, for example, if you were near Peterborough, then be looking at Trent University or Sudbury, looking through Laurentian. That's a little more challenging for me, but it is possible.
The second question is, you said with the internship, it was 4 months?
Correct.
What's the contribution by the university?
There's no university contribution. It's a provincially supported program which was originated in sciences and technologies, and they've expanded now. So there's still a really heavy